Hi, I'm Allan Jones. I'm the Chief Development Officer, Energy and Climate Change at the City of Sydney. I'm responsible for delivering the city's green infrastructure plan and its main energy and climate change projects, in the goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% from 2006 levels by 2030, and also in conjunction with that, 100% local renewable energy system and a local sustainable decentralised water network. The biggest problem that we have in Australia is that 80% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions comes from centralised power generation, primarily coal, which is one of the dirtiest forms of energy generation that you can get. The power that comes into Sydney comes from the Hunter Valley, where the vineyards are. That's several hundred kilometres from Sydney. When you generate electricity from coal-fired power stations using steam turbines, you generate about 1/3 of electricity and 2/3 of heat. The power station has no use of that heat, so it rejects that into the atmosphere for those great big cooling towers that you see at power stations. They use literally millions of litres of water to reject that waste heat. At the same time, greenhouse gas emissions are being pumped up into the atmosphere through the chimneys that burn the fossil fuels. So the Hunter Valley has an efficiency of 28%. So that means that 72% of energy that's been burnt at the power stations is thrown away into the atmosphere. We then lose another 10% of electricity from the Hunter Valley to the City of Sydney. So by the time that electricity arrives in Sydney, we've only got 25% of the energy that's been burnt at the power stations. If you generate electricity locally in the city, then you can recover that waste heat and you can recycle it and you can use it for heating and hot water through a district energy network. For a further step, we can convert that hot water to chilled water. That's when we call it trigeneration. Now, trigeneration is really important for the City of Sydney. During the summer peak months, when temperatures get up to 46 degrees centigrade, 70% of electricity consumption can be air conditioning. More than 50% of water consumption can be used in the cooling towers from that electric air conditioning. So what we have done is developed a renewable energy master plan. Now, people are well aware that with solar and wind, although that's quite popular with the environmentalists, they're intermittent technologies, so they always need fossil fuel backup. So what we did was look at world renewable energy best practice, and probably the best example in the world today is Germany, that has decided to go off fossil fuels, but also off nuclear energy. They're shutting down nuclear power stations as well as shutting down coal-fired plants. They've also developed a renewable gas market. Now, renewable gases are not new. There'll be examples of that in California and in Australia, where waste is taken, say, from a farm or from a sewage works, and biogas is produced. Then they generate electricity from that. But the only problem with that is it has the same inefficiency as a coal-fired power station. So why don't we just use that renewable gas and convert it into a substitute natural gas and not inject it into the electricity grid, but into the gas grid? That means that energy can be used at end use. And in Germany, they're using that to supply cogeneration, trigeneration, district heating, district cooling, and also transport. So they're building fuel pumps, not dispensing petrol and diesel, but renewable gas into vehicles. And the other trick about this is that once you connect renewable energy into renewable gas, it's no longer intermittent. Unlike electricity, which once you've generated, it has to be immediately consumed, gas can be stored. It can be used any time of the day. It has a greater economic value, for example, than off-peak electricity. A further step that the Germans have done is developed power to gas. What do we mean by power to gas? Well, they've had the problem of too much wind penetration. So at the evenings, at the weekends, they have to turn off some of the wind turbines because they're generating too much electricity. So what the Germans have developed is what's called power to gas technology. So using electrolysis, they convert that surplus electricity that would otherwise be switched off into renewable gas, because it doesn't have to be used there and then. Then they inject that substitute natural gas into the gas grid. So not only do we have renewable gases from waste, whether it's agricultural or farming waste, or even waste from vineyards, but also from municipal, commercial and industrial waste. So pretty much any kind of waste, instead of being landfilled or burnt, can be converted into renewable gases using advanced technologies. What would you expect to see in Sydney if you arrived in Sydney in 2030? Well, what you might see, similar to what's happening in other parts of the world, like the offshore wind farm that we have in the Thames Estuary at London, you may see some offshore wind farms off the coast of Sydney. If you were to dive down under the sea, you might see some devices that look like nodding donkeys, just sitting there, nodding backwards and forwards, generating energy. That electricity comes ashore and goes into the local distribution network, not the national grid. You will also see throughout Sydney, as we fly past, every unshaded roof covered with solar energy. Buildings above 100 metres in height with building integrated wind turbines. That's all very good and nice, but the real game on the ground is what's happening underneath the streets. So here, this is one of the tri-generation engines. Now, instead of generating only a third of electricity and throwing 2/3 of the waste heat away, we recover that waste heat to supply heating and air conditioning. Initially fueled by natural gas, but through our renewable energy master plan, switching over to renewable gas by 2030. So somebody living in city, whether it's a residential consumer in one of the high-rise apartment blocks or one of the commercial offices, their electricity, heating and cooling will be 100% renewable energy, non-intermittent renewable energy and zero carbon.